Hey everybody, it's John King with Summit Funding. Thank you for joining me today for my Financial Friday weekly update. Super excited to talk with you today. I've got a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and I want to talk today about tips for buying a home on a budget. Because I think that's a big thing for people right now. Inflation is super high, interest rates are super high, house prices are super high. And being able to focus on buying a home and making it work on a budget is critical. And so I've got 5 tips plus one bonus that will help you to really focus on the things that you need to be aware of to buy a home on a budget. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first tip, leverage your credit score. Now, what do I mean by leverage your credit score? The first thing is know what your credit score is and recognize how critical your credit score is to getting the best possible deal. Credit is underrated. A lot of people think as long as I meet the bare minimum that is required for the program, I'm good. That is the furthest from the truth. Your credit score is the single biggest factor that's going to impact your interest rate. Now, you can't control the market. You can't control where interest rates in general are going. But the better your credit score, the better the deal you're going to get on a home. And so if you're not paying enough attention to your credit, you have to start now. You've got to pay attention to paying all of your bills on time. If you have any collections, you need to get your collections that are within the last 2 years paid off immediately. Collections that are older than 2 years typically don't improve your credit when you pay them off. But the third most important thing about your credit is you have to use credit. Many people stay away from credit and they say, I don't want to use credit because I'll get in trouble. Well, guess what? That's exactly what the credit system doesn't want to hear. Because if you don't trust yourself with credit, why in the world should somebody trust you with $500,000 of our money that we expect you to pay us back? So when I say have credit, you need to have credit cards. You need to use the credit cards, but use them wisely. Keep your balance between 10% and 25% of the credit limit. So you never want to be highly leveraged. Even though I said leverage your credit score is what it says down below, it's actually deleverage your credit balances. Do not keep high balances relative to your credit score, relative to your credit limit, because that's called high utilization. And that basically says to the credit system that you have no self-control. If you owe nothing, it says you don't trust yourself with debt. If you have too high of a balance relative to your credit limit, it says you have no self-control and that you're going to go ahead and spend money no matter what because you can't control yourself. The best and simplest example of this is if we think about a 5-year-old child going to the dollar store. Remember back in the day when the dollar store actually cost $1 and you could actually buy something for $1? Now what is it, $1.25 or $1.50 at the dollar store? Anyway, the fact of the matter is, if you think, hiya Beth, so by the way, if you say hi, you get your name on the screen. So Beth Loeb, Keller Williams, Realtor, DRE, 02027348, hiya Beth. Anyway, so you think about a 5-year-old going to the dollar store. A 5-year-old doesn't have self-control. So if you send the 5-year-old to the dollar store with $5 in their pocket, first of all, if you send them there by themselves, you're getting called by the police. So don't do that. But if you have a 5-year-old with you at the dollar store and they have $5 and let's pretend everything cost $1, the 5-year-old is going to have 5 things. And forget about tax. They don't even understand that concept because they have no self-control. So they had $5 in their pocket. They find a way to spend the $5 because they can't control themselves. That's the same as you having a $1,000 credit limit and you owe $950. You can't control yourself, or at least that's what you're telling the credit system. So make sure not to make that mistake. Now, you're trying to teach that 5-year-old how to have self-control. So you say, 5-year-old, if this is a very smart 5-year-old, hey, what do you think we should do to fix this? And they say, you know what, Mom, don't take me to the dollar store anymore. Well, that's like owing nothing. Did the child learn self-control because they avoided the dollar store? Nope. The only thing they know is avoidance. That says, hey, I can't control myself, therefore I'll just stay away from it. Well, that's not really a solution, because then as soon as they go to the dollar store, they're going to want everything again. So now the 5-year-old says, Mom, I got it. Let's only take $1 with me. That way, I'll only have the ability to spend $1. Well, that's like closing a lot of your credit cards or lowering your credit limit, because you might think, gosh, the credit system is going to be afraid if I have a whole bunch of available credit, they're going to think I'm going to run out and charge up a bunch of money. But the truth is, it simply is another sign that you can't control yourself. So don't lower your credit limits. As a matter of fact, if you can get your credit limits higher, that's going to help improve your credit score. The best way for the 5-year-old to prove that they've proven self-control is to go to the dollar store with $5 in their pocket and leave with 1 or 2 things. That way they had the ability to buy it, but they had the self-control to make sure they didn't. That's the story you need to remember when you think about building credit. Because as I mentioned in the beginning of this segment, credit is the single biggest factor to your interest rate. And so you need to make sure that you're working on great credit, because if you're buying a home on a budget, you need to make sure you get the best possible deal. Do not let a bad credit score hold you back. Now, let's go on to our next tip. Explore down payment assistance programs. Here's the thing. Down payment assistance programs are not free money. So don't misunderstand. When I say buying a home on a budget, sometimes that budget's a monthly payment budget. Sometimes that budget is less cash out of pocket. And in the best world, you have money you can put out of pocket, but you keep it in the bank. You hold on to that money for reserves, for a rainy day fund, because that is the single biggest factor of success in home ownership, is having a little bit of money set aside, having a little bit of coin on the side, so that in case something happens, in case things get slow at work, in case there's a repair needing to be done on the home, that you have some scratch, you got some money to be able to pay for that. So down payment assistance programs aren't only for people who have zero money, but maybe you've saved up 10% for a down payment, but you realize, you know what? That difference in monthly payments only a little bit more, and I can keep a lot of this money in the bank. That security, that fallback of having that money in the bank when you're on a budget, you need to be worried not just short term on having the lowest monthly payment, but medium and long term. What happens when things are a little bit tight? Do I charge up my credit cards? That's going to crush you. That's going to kill you with interest rates at 25 to 32% right now on credit cards. If you're using a credit card to fund a shortfall, use a credit card to pay for groceries because you don't have the money to pay for it because of something else that came up. That's tragic. Now, I know it happens. I'm not throwing shame on you. I'm just saying what you need to think about as a home buyer is you need to think about, how can I keep some money in the bank for a rainy day fund? And so if you're on a budget, you've got to think about putting even less down payment. Sometimes having a little bit higher monthly payment is a smarter option, as long as you can afford the monthly payment. So it's really, really critical that you don't ignore down payment assistance programs, even though they often come with higher interest rates, higher fees. Very few of them are forgivable money. Most of the time you have to pay the money back at some point in time. And even the ones that are forgiven, you're often paying a higher interest rate on the rest of your money for the benefit of it being a grant. So I'm not telling you that it is the end all be all best option, but if you're buying on a budget, don't ignore down payment assistance programs. Here's a good one. Consider fixer-uppers. Now, it's funny. What I said a second ago about down payment assistance isn't related to buying a fixer-upper. But here's the cool thing. If you can find a fixer-upper that has no health or safety hazards, that is in livable condition, we can do pretty much any loan on it. Most people think if a house is in bad shape, it requires special loans, and I have those special loans, but they think that, oh, those are more expensive and more challenging. I just want to do the work on my own, John. As I own the home, I'm going to continue to do work over time to make it better. That's a great game plan for you when you're buying a home on a budget. It's important to think about buying a home that is not necessarily everything you want it to be. Maybe you need to add some extra space to the house. Maybe you can convert some of the garage into some living area. If you or some friends have the tools and the time and the talent to do so, do it by all means. Just don't get scared off by fixer-uppers, because sometimes a realtor is going to call a home a fixer-upper that isn't really as big of a deal. Okay. Sometimes the home is in acceptable shape for a conventional and sometimes even for an FHA loan. And in that case, we can actually even do down payment assistance on those homes. That helps you with your budget because you get a lower price on the home and you can hopefully theoretically get some down payment assistance. Now, if the house needs a lot of work, I have a solution for that too. Now, you got to have your own money out of pocket for a down payment, but there's a program called a renovation loan. You can buy a house well under market value because the work has not been done. People in general have a hard time visualizing what something is going to look like when it's completed, which is why home flippers can get a house for a lot cheaper. Because when it's in bad shape, a home flipper is the only one that can see the potential. Other potential buyers are saying, man, this thing looks horrible, and I'm not sure I have the time, the talent, or the tools to fix it up. But the renovation loan allows you to do all of it. Basically, we simply ask you to put 3.5% down on the grand total of what you bought the house for, plus what it's going to take to fix it up. So you find a $300,000 home that needs $75,000 worth of work, then I treat it like a $375,000 purchase price, and I loan you almost all of that money. You're just putting in 3.5% of that grand total. The kicker is you can't do the work yourself. You can't have a family member do the work. So when you do one of these renovation loans, you're hiring a contractor. And that's important to understand because people buying on a budget sometimes say, John, I'll do all the work myself. That's great if I'm not financing the work. But if I'm financing the cost of the work, then lenders are not going to allow you to do the work. Most importantly, because you might not be trained to do so. Even if you are a contractor, even if you are licensed to do that, the worry is if you spend time working on your house, then you're not going to spend time making money, which means you can't afford the payment. And if you spend all your time making money so that you can afford the payment, you're not going to prioritize the completion of your house, and we need it done within a certain timeline. So just recognize, considering fixer-uppers, you've got a couple of directions to go. If it has no health or safety hazards and it's in livable condition, you can do a normal loan. But if it has health and safety hazards, or you want to finance in the repairs even if they're not health and safety hazards, then we can go with the fixer-upper loan and help you make that happen as well. Here's another big one that people don't think about enough when they're thinking about buying a home on a budget, and that is the tax benefits. There's some pretty big tax benefits to owning a home, but there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. Now, I am not a tax advisor. I don't play one on TV or on YouTube or Facebook. I try really hard to guide people in the right direction. There's a lot of misinformation out there about how much home ownership will help you on your taxes. The key is it depends on your specific tax situation, depends on your income level, depends on your write-offs, depends on a lot of factors. But if you're buying a home on a budget, you've got to recognize that a tax write-off can be a huge amount of savings that people miss. And they simply think about, well, I can rent at this, or I have to spend this to buy. But a large portion of that difference can be made up if you understand your tax benefits. And the other thing I'll point out about tax benefits, you don't have to wait until the end of the year to see the benefit of it. Many people misunderstand and they think, well, John, I get my taxes back at the end of the year, so sure, I'll get a bigger refund at the end of the year, but that's not going to help me make my mortgage payment now. But here's the deal. You can change your withholdings on your pay stub. So as a tip to help buy a home on a budget, when you talk to a tax advisor before you buy a home and you get a feel for what those numbers are going to look like, go back and meet with a tax advisor again after you get the keys and say, now, how should I change my withholdings knowing these are the exact numbers so that I can see more of that money on every single paycheck to help me make my mortgage payments? All right, my fifth tip for buying a home on a budget, prioritize your must-haves. It is really easy to get caught up in the dream of buying your perfect home. The other night I did my masterclass and I jokingly made a reference to the Barbie dream house. And my family and I went and saw the Barbie movie a few weeks ago, and every Barbie has their Barbie dream house. That's not true in real life. Okay, it might be true in Barbie land, but it's not true in real life. And so you have to build up to that. You cannot expect that you're going to get your Barbie dream house on the first home that you're buying. As a matter of fact, sometimes you have to compromise. I was talking to a client last week, and he and his wife live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, and they have one child, and they're planning to have a second one. And they want to buy a certain size home in a certain neighborhood. But they said to me, John, if I can't afford to buy that home in that neighborhood, then we've decided that we can just stay here and rent in this place in the 2-bedroom, 1-bath with my wife and I, and we'll just have 2 kids in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And I said, well, have you thought about shopping for homes that are 2-bedroom, 1-bath? And he goes, well, that's too small. Wait a second. How is that too small if that's what you live in today? If you're willing to compromise to live in it today, why wouldn't you compromise and own that same home or a similar home at a similar size? Is it the perfect situation? No. But with home ownership, and you'll see this if you watch my How to Buy Masterclass, I talk about the appreciation of homes over time. And home prices over the years have continued to step up and then go flat and up and then go flat. Interest rates go up and down and up and down. And so once you jump on that ladder of home prices, you can have the starter home, and as prices go up, then you jump up the next rung on the ladder. It's the ladder of home ownership. So sometimes you're targeting rung number 3. Sometimes you're targeting rung number 5. Guess what? Owning rung 1 or 2 gets you on the ladder. So if you're thinking about buying a home on a budget, think about a budget home, because sometimes the only way to make the math work is to buy a less expensive home. Maybe it's further away. Maybe it's in a city that you hadn't planned on living in. Maybe you can relocate your job. Maybe your employer has an opportunity for you to work remotely. Explore different options, because you can always move back into that area as you start building more equity, as you get appreciation. And that comes 2 ways. It comes from the value of your home going up, but it comes from you paying down your mortgage. So over time, you're building appreciation. And so prioritize the must-haves on that ladder of home ownership. And sometimes just make sure you're getting on the ladder, because standing on the side, watching everybody else jump on the ladder, that's pretty frustrating. And I've talked to many clients who feel that way over the last 11 years. 2011, 2012 was the bottom of the market after the Great Recession. And all we've seen is house prices continue to go up ever since. And every year I talk to people saying, John, I missed it. I missed it. I should have bought a home last year. One of the challenges is the media tells you that, oh, you know what? It's a bad time to buy a home. Stop listening to the media. Prioritize what your needs are and get in on a rung. Even if it's a rung below what you were targeting, you're on the ladder, and that's the key. All right. The other thing about prioritizing must-haves is maybe you need to prioritize how important is it for me to live by myself versus having some roommates or buying with a family member. Maybe you have to prioritize, hey, maybe I should buy a duplex and have a home where I can get rent from the other side of the home. It would be ideal to have a single family residence and have the perfect home that you want. But sometimes thinking outside the box can be a complete game changer for you. So when you're prioritizing your must-haves, think about other options. Think about multi-family homes, or think about multiple families in one home. Maybe your siblings, maybe your aunt and uncle, maybe your brother or sister. You've got people within your family, within your friend circle that you would trust to own a home with you. And so you guys pool your resources and buy a home together. That's a huge tactic to help you purchase a home on a budget. With these challenging times that we're in right now, you've got to think outside the box, because jumping on the home ownership ladder and getting that home that is number 3 rung, that is the perfect home, almost the Barbie dream house, you got to look a little below that sometimes. And that might include looking at different ways to explore who you're buying with and who you're living with. All right. So bonus tip. So I said I'd have 5. Here's number 6. Search for special limited time programs. Tell you the best way to stay on top of them is follow me. Follow me on social media. On YouTube is the best way. So right up here, subscribe to JohnLoneKing, or subscribe to YouTube. It's also down here, at John Lone King. because there's lots of special programs. There's one that we just found up in the city of Rockland. So Rockland is a suburb of Sacramento, and they have a condominium that they are selling. I think it's at $280,000. And it is a great opportunity for the right family. Just understand, things are not as simple as the way they appear. These programs are not the end all be all perfection. It gets you into the ladder of home ownership. This particular program, they're selling the home below market value. So you're getting a deal on the house, but later on when you sell it, you have to sell it back to them at below market value. You'll be able to get some appreciation, but you can't sell it at market value. So when you buy something, City of Sacramento, Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency has the similar program where they sell you houses at below market value. Many, many cities up and down the state have them, but just recognize when you sell the house, you're selling it at below market value as well. I was talking to a client, City of San Francisco had a similar program. So you really need to explore these special limited time programs, and I'll be highlighting them from time to time on my YouTube channel. The other thing is special financing from the state of California. The state had the California Dream for All program that came out earlier this year. It'll be a new launch of the California Dream for All program happening later on this year or early next year. So you want to follow me to get more information about it. But that's a great opportunity that if the timing is right and the circumstances work out for you, it can help you buy a home on a budget and have a significantly lower monthly payment. Kathy said she'd never heard of that program. So you're talking about I'm assuming you're talking about the program to buy homes under market value. Feel free to type in a clarification. By the way, guys, I'm pretty much wrapping up with my 5 tips. So if you have any questions and you're watching live, please post those questions right now. If you're watching recorded, post your questions and I'll catch those later. So yeah, Kathy mentioned she said, yes, it was those programs. Many cities have that. For example, in the city of Rockland, it's within one particular condominium complex that a subset of homes are designated for the city to sell as affordable housing. And so what they do is those homes were sold years ago, and then every time somebody wants to sell one, they sell it back to the city. The city puts it on the market they sell it back to the city at a percentage below market value. The city puts it on the market again at that price, and they sell it to somebody else. And so it's a great opportunity to get into homeownership. You get the tax write-offs, you get the benefit of paying down your mortgage. So part of your payment goes towards principal reduction. And when you sell, you get that money back and you get some of the appreciation. So it's an amazing opportunity and they happen all over the state. So I hope this has been really, really helpful. I want to continue giving more tips and tricks like this in this kind of a format. So if you found this valuable and beneficial and you want to see more of it, please put a comment down below to let me know that you liked it. Aside from that, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So I'll simply end with getting rid of this banner. I'll end with next steps. So right over here, you'll see if you're ready to start your journey, go to johnloneking.com. Or you can scan that QR code and make sure to follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channels and follow me so that I can help keep you advised on all of your options to save money as you're on the homeownership journey. Thanks everybody for joining me today and have an amazing weekend.